Ukraine was hit in the early hours of Thursday morning by an unprecedented attack from Russia. More than 80 missiles were fired, with many of them, more than half, hitting major cities like Kyiv, Lviv, and the embattled Kherson. Caolan Robertson, Byline TV producer, has been in Ukraine making a documentary for Byline TV with John Sweeney. He joins us now. Caolan, tell me a little bit about these attacks this morning.
So I was woken up at about 6 a.m. this morning by the sound of a huge missile strike. It shook the whole city. Went to go and film it for Byline TV, but unfortunately you can't film where they hit. It's kind of an interesting reason why it's kind of justified. The Russian targeting system is so crap here that they don't really know exactly where it's going to land when they try to target, say, military or infrastructure. Usually they're going for waterworks or things like that. And they kind of rely on civilian videos of where the missile lands so that they can improve the accuracy next time. So you don't really know what's happening because you can't get anywhere near the hit. But there were two that hit Kyiv this morning really early. One central Kyiv where I am now, but one in the southeast of the city. So what happened was 81 missiles were fired from all over the place this morning, from the Black Sea to Belarus, all targeted at all major cities across Ukraine. Odessa, Kherson was hit very badly. I think there were multiple people killed there. And it was done, like the Russians have always done, to install fear and terror all over this country, to terrorize Ukrainians, and to destroy everything that's functional here. Not the best way to be woken up in the morning, but it's not surprising because they've been doing this since the war began.
And what else have you seen while you've been in Ukraine? What other kind of attacks or issues have you uncovered?
Well, we came here. I only came here for the anniversary of the war, which was a couple of weeks ago, to film with John Sweeney, and we were going to present and talk about the chaos and the casualties that the war has brought about on this country. But I'm still here now because there's so much going on and it's so severe. We've been looking at war crimes that the Russians have been carrying out, from going to villages all around the south and the east of Ukraine and speaking to people that have shown us videos filmed from their windows right in their houses of this glowing sort of fireworks stuff that happens silently at night. And we took some of that and we had some of it analyzed by experts, and we're basically finding that the Russians are using something like white phosphorus or thermite on civilian areas. That is against the Geneva Convention. It's also a crime against humanity. That has been confirmed with us throughout this entire trip. We've also been looking at mass graves. What happens is when the Russians take a village or a town, they occupy it, and they don't just change the flag to the Russian flag and things carry on. They rape, pillage, and torture and murder people senselessly and mercilessly. And they throw them all in mass graves like the Germans did in World War II to cover up their crimes because they don't want anyone to know what they've been doing. So we've been going with investigators who are digging and looking and still trying to find these mass graves in places that have been liberated by the Russians. That's extremely important work because not enough people seem to know about it yet, because I think the world's still coming to terms with just what happened here. There's so much. And then we've been looking at torture. So there was an article in The Guardian last week that was very, very good. And it talked about torture being used in Ukraine, not as something that's random by battalions that turn up in a city and they just decide to get drunk and torture people, but as a systemic, funded, institutional thing by the Kremlin that is by design. I found a victim of torture in Kherson city, south of Ukraine, and I convinced him to go back to the place where he was tortured. He walked down all the different cells to try and remember which one he was tortured in. And I remember he walked into one of them and his initials were carved into the wall underneath the crossword that he was doing, which verifies he was there. And he said that the people who were torturing him and who were running that torture chamber spoke with a educated Moscow accent, and that it looked pretty heavy and it looked like it was a funded institution. It's not a random thing. So we've uncovered war crimes. We've uncovered things that back up what the Guardian are talking about in terms of torture being systemic. But then also what Byline TV has always been great at doing, what we're both great at doing is the human stories behind all of this as well. And the people who have had their lives completely turned upside down ever since this war began. And it's heavy, but what the Russians are doing to this country is absolutely unimaginable horror.
What would you say to the people online who are questioning the reality of this war, who are saying it's not real, that it's staged? The increasing number of people who seem to take that view.
Well, there's a lot of those people. John Sweeney was on Good Morning Britain live from this city last week, and the top comment with his appearance was saying that the whole war is staged and it's all fake. So there's a lot of people that say Putin isn't winning this war. The Ukrainians are winning, and that's true in some ways, but Putin is winning the disinformation war because some of the biggest talk show hosts in America are peddling his lies, which is that all the Ukrainians are Nazis and that there's no real war going on here. We shouldn't participate in it, and that it's just a proxy, small scale thing, downplaying it all. So I kind of don't blame people for believing that stuff because it's being pumped out by America's biggest networks, and the same sort of stuff is being put out in Britain. But that's extremely dangerous, and that's extremely concerning. And that's kind of why we're doing this film, because even I, as a reporter who knows a lot about what's going on in the world, was still shocked about what's going on here when I arrived. And that's because of a failure of the media to report enough on what's going on. But a lot of our media institutions are peddling Putin's lies because this is how propaganda works. This sort of stuff happened in World War II. You had the same kind of rhetoric being pumped out by far left and far right institutions saying that things were a proxy war even then in the 1940s, trying to downplay everything, saying that we should de-escalate and that we should have a peace treaty. But it's not surprising that so many people believe these lies because it's been peddled by loads of our institutions.
Caolan Robertson, thank you very much and stay safe.
Thanks.